the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Be wild this year. It's going to be zany, crazy, bizarre come next December.
It's great. We're all having fun, Brent. We're all having fun, and I'm sure the coaches are having fun. They're having a great time. Speaking of recruiting, though, Chris Brazzell, or is it Brazzle? It's Brazzle, right? Because his dad was the Cowboys receiver.
Yeah, it's Brazzle.
Yeah, Brazzle, Chris Brazzle. He picks the Vols today. I'm most curious now. How does this rotation look like? Because a lot of Tennessee fans are excited because the size, it's the measurables. Like, he's a big dude, 6'5", speedy, productive at Tulane, but still a big jump from G5 to an SEC schedule here in Knoxville. And I wonder too. It's easy to forget, but like the Dante Thornton hype, I think, was higher going into last year, and I think you still at least saw some stuff, and he was at a Power 5 school. I wonder, Brent, from your estimation, how are you like, all right, he's a nice find, or do you think he's more likely to be a plug and play starter than Dante Thornton was supposed to be last year?
Oh, I like Brazzle better than Dante Thornton from the standpoint of he has more production. The thing about Dante Thornton that got lost in Dante Thornton's arrival at Tennessee was Dante Thornton basically caught takeoff routes. And he caught about, I don't know, a dozen of them. And that was his Oregon career. And so the idea that he was going to come in and roll right into that thing and be the next Jalen Hyatt was unfair. I think a lot of people hyped him up. A lot of people in the building hyped him up. Some coaches hyped him up. It was called a freak, by offensive coordinator Joey Halsley. And I think all of those things didn't help, and I think created some unrealistic expectations for him. So, I think when you look at Brazzle, he's done more. He's been more productive. Now, how does it translate to the SEC? We can debate that and all those types of things, but he does have more production. So I think you got a better idea of what you're getting with Brazzle, whereas with Thornton, it was more about potential.
And I wondered out too, like people who are worried, do you think is there an effect in the wide receiver room now? Because there's still some time to enter the portal, and we obviously will see how spring ball works with a couple of guys entering the portal, but you can't transfer to another SEC school if you transfer in the spring, right? Isn't that the rule?
That's correct.
Yeah. So who knows if that affects some of these receivers, but do you think if you're like a Chaz Nimrod or a Caleb Webb, are you raising an eyebrow with Brazzle coming in here?
You're probably wondering a little bit. But I think that it's not a situation that it's going to run someone off. Some people have asked me about Brew McCoy. I don't think it has an effect on Brew McCoy. I think Brew McCoy's decision is going to center around whether or not Brew McCoy is healthy enough to work out for NFL people or not. I think that's largely where Brew McCoy's process and decision-making comes from. As for those other guys, I don't think so. But in the world we live in right now, do we really know? You got until January the 2nd to go into the portal if you're going to stay in the SEC. So anything could happen between now and then. But I don't think it's one of those deals because it's still not the deepest room in the world when you look at it. It's really not. You've still got quite a few guys out there that are, they're just not big in numbers, and there's some guys who are still trying to figure out whether or not they can play. So I don't think it scares them off, to be frank with you. But again, I've been shocked by plenty in the portal, not at Tennessee necessarily, but around the country. I've been really surprised at a lot of what's happened.
And if you're a Tennessee fan, this is great. It's competition. Like, you want Thornton and Brazzle to compete on the outside. You want Mike Matthews to come in here and compete with some big-time transfers. You want to see Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb have to come up. They got some playing time down the stretch last year. I think Nimrod popped a little bit more for me than Webb. I don't know if you felt the same. I'm a little bit more in on Nimrod as a long-term prospect in this offense than Caleb Webb to this point, but we'll see. I don't know. I think the competition is good, right? Like, and if Brew McCoy wants to come back, you welcome him back. Like, you don't go, sorry, the spot, so there's just too many guys. Like, what we saw this past year, and Nico, you need as many good, proven, and not even just proven, just guys. You need bodies in this wide receiver room, and I think don't overthink the rotation and who's starting, I think, if you're a Tennessee fan.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I think that you let it go compete. And I think part of the question Tennessee fans are asking, and I think it's probably the same question that Caleb Webb and them are asking a little bit, is that, now, wait a minute, you haven't played a deep rotation of guys. You know, now part of that's because you haven't had a deep rotation of guys to play, you know, but the question becomes, what does that rotation look like when you get into when you got more bodies to play with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
are you still going to play a light number? Are you going to play a heavy number? You know, exactly what are you doing there, I think, is a fair question that some of these kids are going to have. If, you know, if I were those kids, I'd probably have a similar type of question, right? I mean, I think that's just normal. So we'll see exactly what that looks like, you know, moving ahead. But for the most part, I think that these guys are pretty settled right now. I don't think it's I'm not overly worried about where that room is. I think you should be much more happy about Brazzell coming in than you are worried about what might happen to that room kind of moving forward.
And I mean, Mike Matthews looks like a dude. Like, he looks so much older in that picture of all the newcomers for Tennessee. I mean, I'm curious. Like Rusty Manziel of On 3, when we were talking a few weeks back, he was super high on him, and obviously we went to the same high school, so 100% track record here of Parkview High School kids in the state of Tennessee. It's a good history there, Brent. But he
ones who got here.
The ones who got here. That's true. There was
a
guy who was committed here for a little bit during the Pruitt era. Was it Chase Brown?
Yeah, running back. Ended up at Virginia. He was on the Virginia roster this year when Tennessee played him, but he didn't play. He wasn't a factor.
Well, look, Mike Matthews will go different than the other Chase.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I mean, I'm just curious because freshmen, we've heard forever, and you can speak more to this, Brent, that.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.